It is a beautiful rainy day in Southern California, which is the perfect time to sit and cuddle up with a journal and a cup of tea. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I have here my September-October daily log journal that I want to share with you. And I'm especially excited to share this one with you because I think it exemplifies a lot of the things that I pretty regularly talk about on this channel in terms of not being perfect or getting caught up in having to have something written down every single day or having to follow the same format every day. This journal represents a time when I was traveling a lot. I traveled all the way from September 5th until October 16th, and then I was gone again for 2 more trips in the second half of October. I kept a travel journal during that time separately in an accordion notebook, and I talk about that in a different video. You can look for that. It's the last one that I posted about traveling with an accordion notebook. So this one had to cover things that didn't, or cover them in a different way. So let's just start going through it. First of all, I love using these label maker tapes, and my label maker has some issues. So the E's and the B's, as you can see, were not working super well. That's okay. You can tell it says September, October. The ribbon here is from my sister's wedding invitation. Her wedding was at the end of October. This is a picture that I printed out from my time in Glenwood Springs. If you watch the accordion fold travel journal video, you'll see that I actually sketched this exact scene from this picture. And then on the back, I just threw some stickers on. There was an election, so I put my I voted sticker. I also put 2 stickers from my favorite coffee shops in Denver. This one is Improper City, and this one is Crema. So let's open it up. We start out with some habit tracking. I kind of fell off of that in the middle of October. It is what it is. At the beginning of this month, I was still tracking what I wore. You'll see that as time progressed, I was less great at that. I also just put some designs here on the first day to signify the beginning of a new month. This was a day that I went out to brunch with my son and his partner, and there's kind of a funny anecdote that I wrote out on this side, as well as the actual work that I got done on this particular day. Moving forward, I started experimenting in September with documenting the coffee shops that I visited in different ways. So this is one of those attempts at a local cafe. I talked about the seating, my order, the vibe inside. I also bought a bracelet that day. It's actually this bracelet right here. And I went ahead and put the card that came with it, stuck with washi tape inside, just to remind me of the meanings of that stone. This next page is when I was actively getting ready for the trip and trying to wrap things up at home. So it is 3 days on one page, and the last day was the first day of the drive. Again, we have another coffee shop. This was done at the hotel where I was staying on the first night of my drive to Utah. We move on to a breakfast that my brother made at his house, and just some quick entries about what was happening there. Here's a picture of a mural that I painted, another coffee shop, and again, these are quick entries because I was spending a lot of time with family. I kept my entries pretty short. I never sat down and spent an hour or even half an hour on my journal while I was there. More very quick entries. This was actually a big day here that I made a whole video about, but the entry in the journal here is only 1 bullet points, plus a little bit of an anecdote. Moving on, this was another driving day. There's that Glenwood Springs picture again. I am not above using the same photo twice in my journal. This drawing didn't turn out the way that I had hoped, but it kind of made a nice background for the photo and the ephemera, I thought. Here's my first day in Denver. This is that Crema coffee shop, the same one that I got the sticker from here. I also documented that shop in my travel journal with a much nicer drawing, I think. But the fact that I drew this one very quickly made this one a better drawing in the end. Again, multiple days on a single page. This was a new format that I tried out with people, places, and activities, and I did that for a couple of busy days here. Again, the people, places, and activities. This was a time when I actually sat down to sketch on site, and then I finished this sketch up later. Really terrible drawings of my friends. I apologize for that in retrospect, but it does make me think of them when I see them. Some more days on a single page. This was a drawing that was expanded on somewhat in my travel journal. And time slowed down a little bit through the beginning of October. I had a little bit more time to sketch, and so I spent, for example, some time in a local park just sitting and sketching. I didn't have a lot of time this day though, and so I did a 3 Good Things format. There's a little bit of a junk journal vibe going on to this one, in that any ephemera that I picked up, I do just stick in my journal. So it's kind of a cross between a daily log, a bullet journal for work, and a junk journal. Again, lots of sketches of my coffee. Quite a while ago, I started sketching my coffee every single day. And I did that until I got comfortable sketching other things. But when in doubt, I always go back to sketching my coffee, sketching a pastry, just to get some drawing in on any given day. A lot of these entries in this section I did make up later. I went back and filled in what I remembered of the day. That's not the ideal way that I would like to keep these journals, but sometimes if I do want to have a record of a day and I didn't write at the time, I'll take some time maybe on the weekend or when I have an extra hour or two to sit down and just document what I remember. And here you go. Here I have a day where I just didn't fill in what happened that day. Not only is there nothing here for October 12th, but I didn't write on October 13th or October 14th. Those were my last several days in Denver, and I was just trying to get as much of the city and the people in as I possibly could. Here we have a travel day. And then finally, I'm back in Los Angeles, and there was still a lot to be done. I had a very quick turnaround when I returned to Los Angeles, so you're seeing these little short entries with no images at all again. Here we went to a museum, and again, I was just enjoying my son's company at the museum. A lot of times when I go to something like a museum, I will try to sit down and sketch, but I didn't do that at all during this trip. There's the ticket from a Halloween event I went to with some friends. And then we're traveling again. We have a hotel entry key. This was the day of my sister's wedding. I intended to do a big documentation of that day. I didn't really, and I'm not going back to it. I'm gonna leave it the way it is. I don't need to have this journal perfect and complete for it to represent what I experienced during that time. We're driving again here, traveling, moving my son, driving, bunch of short entries, no drawings, no photos. And then we come to finally the end of October. And as you'll see, because I combined so many entries, I have a lot of empty pages at the end of this notebook. So I tried something new. I wrote a months in review section. I sat down on my couch and I just wrote a journal entry about the things that had happened over the last couple months. And this goes for several pages. I ended up covering places I stayed in or passed through during that time, and the things that I would like to focus on moving forward from this month. And then there are just some empty pages at the end, and that is totally okay. I think if I learned anything this month, I learned that journaling is not an obligation. Journaling and logging my days is something that I do because I enjoy it, because I enjoy having the memories accessible in this sort of way. I enjoy looking at the journals at the end, but it doesn't have to be something that I am obsessive about doing in a specific way at a specific time. Documenting my life should not be at the expense of living my life. And I think this journal shows that. I was able to document a lot of my life, and I can flip through this and remember these times, but I didn't do it at the expense of experiencing the things that I was experiencing. And equally as important, I didn't stop or abandon the journal just because I missed some days here and there. And now, September and October go into the binder for the second half of 2025. And until next time, I'm wishing you love and joy and all of those good things, and I can't wait to talk to you again.